to record. So we're moving on to the next section in the textbook. The idea of cause and effect appears in science, philosophy, and religion, and is based on a well-known principle of causation. In religion, God is the first cause and creation is the effect. But what if someone invented a philosophy that confused the sequence and reversed effect and cause? This would make no sense, yet this is what the ego's religion would have you believe about yourself, namely that the ego is your creator and deserves your loyalty. But you might never have known this because it's the ego's secret until now. Hello and welcome to Miracles on High Plains. I'm your host, Jonica, and our reader today is Atisha B. Before we get into the reading, I want to quickly read what is found at the end of today's section, the very last paragraph. Begin at the end and see, and then when we get there the second time, perhaps all this will be much clearer. It says, at last, the mind acknowledges, this is not done to me, but I am doing this. Here are the effects of tracing back sickness to its cause. And thus the mind is free to make another choice instead. Beginning here, salvation will change the course of every step in the descent to separation until all the steps have been retraced, the ladder gone, and all the dreaming of the world undone. That's the note we finish on. So now let's begin at the beginning. Atisha?
Without a cause, there can be no effects. And yet, without effects, there is no cause. A cause is made by its effects. The Father is a father by his Son. Effects do not create their cause, but they establish its causation. Thus, the Son gives fatherhood to his Creator and receives the gift that he has given him. It is because he is God's Son that he must also be a father, who creates as God created him. The circle of creation has no end. Its starting and its ending are the same. But in itself, it holds the universe of all creation, without beginning and without an end.
Mm-hmm. So trying to orient our minds to this language and these ideas, the Father is the cause, his Son is the effect, and that the effects and the cause are interrelated with one another because a cause is not a cause unless it has an effect. And so cause and effect are linked. But cause always comes before effect. Thus the, and a property in the spiritual domain, now we're talking pure spirit, in the spiritual domain, the Creator passes along to his children, his sons, whom we are. The Creator passes along the attribute of creating. And we mean this spiritually, not biologically. Yes, there's a biological dimension, but we're talking about the ability to create love, to make love real, to be a co-creator of truth, beauty, and goodness in your life. The creator, that's a natural attribute of the creator, and he passes that along. And thus you also become a father who creates as God created you. You were created in love, and therefore your creations are like that. Your creations are created in love. This is could be viewed as spiritual talk. It's referring to a circle of creation that has no end. It's without any limit. It's the original state in which we were all brought into being. And it has never changed. The separation is a lie that says it has changed, and that relationship between you and I and the creator has now been severed. And with that belief being introduced, then a series of additional ideas are inserted that result ultimately in total insanity.
Fatherhood is creation. Love must be extended. Purity is not confined. It is the nature of the innocent to be forever uncontained, without a barrier or limitation. Thus is purity not of the body, nor can it be found where limitation is. The body can be healed by its effects, which are as limitless as is itself. Yet must all healing come about because the mind is recognized as not within the body, and its innocence is quite apart from it, and where all healing is. Where then is healing? Only where its cause is given its effects. For sickness is a meaningless attempt to give effects to causelessness and make it be a cause.
Mm-hmm. So it would be easy to be confused about the levels here and to assume a message is being said here, the message that you want to hear, that you wish to hear. What it says is that the body is limited, thus the holy love, purity, and innocence, which are unlimited, are not of the body. Yet, the body can be healed by the effects of love, purity, and innocence. Now, we need to come back and describe what do we mean by a healed body. Don't jump to conclusions and think you know already what a healed body is, but be open-minded to another way of looking at that. And how does that healing come about? Through a change of mind. Because the mind is recognized as not within the body, and the mind's innocence is quite apart from the body, and the mind is where all healing is. The mind, remember, there's really only one mind in all of creation. It's part of a dimension that you and I share with the Creator. All healing lies there. Where then is healing? Only where the source is acknowledged as the source. Confusion or sickness. Now we're going to redefine sickness not to mean biological states of disease or infirmity, but sickness as a confused state of mind, of not understanding what you are, why you're here, what your purpose is. Sickness is a meaningless attempt to reverse cause and effect and make the effects into a cause. Okay, so that may not be altogether clear because there's a lot there. And we are most likely always going to be encountering your pre-existing beliefs about healing the body and what sickness is. And so that there's that matter. But even if you're able to let that go, the idea of a healed body is a concept we haven't talked about before explicitly. And so I would offer this idea to you. Please try to keep an open mind that it all comes down to the purpose to which you give your body. Is it a purpose that you independently and by yourself contrived and cobbled together based on some self-centered inclinations? Or is it a purpose that is shared by the Holy Spirit, which is to use your body as an instrument of healing the mind, as a means of gaining freedom from the ancient prison of the ego? If you view that way, the purpose of the body is restored to a meaningful purpose in its proper role as a result of recognizing that the mind is pure and innocent, and the body can then be used as an extension of the mind's healing. That's a lot to take in. Let it rest there. We'll reinforce it as we go along. Let's hold our comments until we read one more paragraph.
Always in sickness does the Son of God attempt to make himself his cause, and not allow himself to be his Father's son. For this impossible desire, he does not believe that he is love's effect, and must be caused because of what he is. The cause of healing is the only cause of everything. It has but one effect. And in that recognition, causelessness is given no effects and none is seen. A mind within a body and a world of other bodies, each with separate minds, are your creations. You, the other mind, creating with effects unlike yourself. And as their father, you must be like them.
I highlighted in color those last few lines because they're written from the point of view of what the ego would have you to believe. These are not statements of fact or truth from the Holy Spirit's perfect perception, but it is the message the ego would have you believe. So I don't want to focus on that. I'm going to focus more on recalling what the root issue is the denial of your sonship, the denial of your relationship with the Creator is the root of all the separation. To not allow yourself to be your father's son. It's an impossible desire, but yet it's the one that the ego is committed to. And that's where, in order to further that idea, the ego's religion will then seek to reverse the reality of cause and effect and twist it into a distorted message, which would then have you completely confused with regard to what your source is. So if I hadn't said it before, let's just call the ego out on what it's up to. The ego wants to be your God. The ego wants to guide you, to be your source, wants you to look to it for your identity and your sense of meaning and everything else. The ego wants to be on the throne of your life, and therefore it will appear to be the cause of you. Now, I know you probably didn't suspect that. It's part of the great secret. Nevertheless, watch what happens to your attention. How often do you look to the ego? How often do you subscribe to its beliefs and identify with its messages? I think you'll find that there are plenty of examples where we became confused by these teachings because they're secret, but not anymore. Sandra?
Yeah, it says in this book, The Course in Miracles, that all sickness begins in the mind. And it's a matter of identity for me, is which mind am I going to be identifying with? The mind of God. My mind holds only what I think with God. Or the mind of the ego. And chances are, if I'm aligning with the mind of the ego, I'm going to make myself sick. And I haven't done that before. In fact, I was the first one to say, oh, look what I did. I gave myself cancer. Now, some people would think that that was blaming myself, but for me, that was freedom. Because if I gave myself cancer because I was so frightened and I wasn't trusting God, then I could heal that. By the same power that I gave it to myself, I could heal it with the help of the Holy Spirit and with God. So it was just a matter of changing my mind.
It
I'm
is. Thank you, Sandra. Kathy?
The last paragraph was talking about our creations. I understand, like, if I had a child, that would be a creation, right? That's easy. But is it saying more here that it says a world of other bodies, each with separate minds, are your creations? Is that when we directly help
This,
heal them,
all
or
right, this
what?
paragraph is a distortion paragraph, Kathy.
Oh,
I'm sorry, this paragraph is what ego would have you believe.
oh, okay. So tell me the
But It's,
definition of
it's
your
the
creation.
reason why creations and other and father are all in air in quotation marks is this is the way the ego would have you view these symbols. Now, I know these things are not obvious.
Mhm.
Um, Nevertheless, I think there's a reason why the Course uses this writing style, which is so that you eventually learn to discern the difference in your own thinking and your own feelings between what the ego is saying and what Holy Spirit is saying.
Mhm. So in the course, it talks about your creations. Is it going to talk about that later in this section? Or
I don't think so. But
okay,
just briefly, your creations are eternal, are with you forever, are saved
right.
with you forever. They are a part of, think of it as a part of your soul identity. They are all the experiences in which you allowed spirit to express through you. And because you are a co-participant in them, they are your creations. You are a co-creator with them and of them. And that can be in any form that love takes: charity, kindness, forgiveness,
Okay, got
gentleness,
it.
on and on and on. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Our creations have already begun and will continue on forever.
Great, thanks.
Yeah. Okay, so what ego wants to do is inhibit your beliefs about belonging to your father, about your relationship with your father. And the ego wants to take the place of the creator in your mind so that you worship your ego. I mean, we might call it, like we have terms in our common vernacular, like egomaniac and egotistical and other terms as well to describe people that we view as being completely uh, sabotaged by their ego, overwhelmed by their ego. Well, that's what the ego wants, is for you to give it your power. Go on.
Nothing at all has happened, but that you have put yourself to sleep and dreamed a dream in which you were an alien to yourself and but a part of someone else's dream. The miracle does not awaken you, but merely shows you who the dreamer is. It teaches you there is a choice of dreams while you are still asleep, depending on the purpose of your dreaming. Do you wish for dreams of healing or for dreams of death? A dream is like a memory in that it pictures what you wanted shown to you.
Mhm. So in that, what we referred to a moment ago about the ego wanting to be your God, nothing has really happened. That hasn't really happened. It's a mythology or a sophistry. It's a thought system that causes us to go into unawareness. We call it sleep and a dream. It's a not knowing what the truth is, and instead investing attention to illusions in which you are an alien to yourself. And so that would be the bottom rung, the bottom of the ladder. We retraced the separation down to the bottom of the ladder, where you now are an alien to your own true nature and have assumed a separate false identity, ego identity, and that comes with it all the attributes that the ego would have you experience. What about the miracle? Well, the miracle is not a device for bringing you into perfect awareness of oneness, consciousness of all things. It is not a device for that, but it does start you out on the path towards awakening by helping you to realize you were dreaming. Your mind was misappropriated into an ego thought system, which is nothing really is happening. It's, you can call it a nightmare if you wish. It's a unreality, a pseudo reality that has no enduring properties. It is not eternal. It is not a part of creation's plan. That's why we call it a dream. And what will be emphasized a half a dozen times in this reading today is that miracle shows you were the one doing the dreaming. Well, that would not be enough if you just realize you are confused and dreaming. The next step follows logically from that is that there are choices you have between dreaming a dream of ego nightmare or a dream of healing, which we call the happy dream. And so there's a choice. And the dream and the power of your mind, the power of your ability to choose, enables you to decide which of these dreams do you want shown to you. Your will, restated, your will of choosing is vital step in your path towards becoming free of the dream of the ego. Sandra?
Yeah, this is really about the power of decision, and choosing something that's going to bring me peace and happiness rather than choosing something that's going to make me sick and miserable. And really I have to ask, because it's so subtle, these habits are so subtle.
Yeah.
I have to really ask myself, what do I really want?
Good.
Because again, the ego just sneaks in there, and it's very sneaky. I'm complete.
Yeah, thank you, Sandra. That what do I really want? I find that to be extremely useful and practical application that you can use almost in any situation. And it's a way of reminding yourself that whatever you want shown to you, the whatever you choose to give your attention to, that's the dream you will find fills your consciousness.
An empty storehouse with an open door holds all your shreds of memories and dreams. Yet, if you are the dreamer, you perceive this much at least, that you have caused the dream and can accept another dream as well. But for this change in content of the dream, it must be realized that it is you who dreamed the dreaming that you do not like. It is but an effect that you have caused, and you would not be cause of this effect. In dreams of murder and attack, are you the victim in a dying body slain? But in forgiving dreams, is no one asked to be the victim and the sufferer? These are the happy dreams the miracle exchanges for your own. It does not ask you make another, only that you see you made the one you would exchange for this.
So let's reassert this last line. The miracle does not ask that you make another dream. The Holy Spirit will supply you with the alternative, the replacement to your dream of being a victim in a dying body slain. Holy Spirit has a solution, but it does ask you that you see that the dream you made is not the cause of your suffering, that you were the maker of that dream. This is another way of saying that you need to accept responsibility for the content of your own thinking. In other words, if you're dreaming a nightmare, I realize that I'm the one that's dreaming that dream. That's at some level I acquiesced, perhaps passively, perhaps actively. I joined in on the collective nightmare of the world, a belief in a world of victimhood and suffering, dreams of murder and attack, of which there are more than ample evidence that people are dreaming that dream. More than ample. So, by the way, it's a deeper message, and I'm a little hesitant, but it's the truth, so I don't want to hold back. In the dream of the ego, it is a dream of murder and attack where you feel the victim in a dying body. That's the purpose that the ego would assign to your body, to become a participant in that drama, in that ego drama. It's a drama of death. And that's the sickness from which the body must be healed. Your body was not here for you to participate in a dream of murder and attack, be it to be a victim and a sufferer. Holy Spirit did not offer you that. Holy Spirit repurposes the body, heals the body by giving it a new purpose, which is in a line in accordance with your higher will, your true self, and your creations. So the real message that I would have you take away from here is that to heal the body is to see it having a purpose that is in fulfillment of the plan of the Holy Spirit for your life.
This world is causeless, as is every dream that anyone has dreamed within the world. No plans are possible, and no design exists that could be found and understood. What else could be expected from a thing that has no cause? Yet, if it has no cause, it has no purpose. You may cause a dream, but never will you give it real effects, for that would change its cause, and it is this you cannot do. The dreamer of a dream is not awake, but does not know he sleeps. He sees illusions of himself as sick or well, depressed or happy, but without a stable cause with guaranteed effects.
Mm-hmm. So the dreamer of a dream is not awake. A dreamer of a dream is confused, is lost in a lost world, without a sense of purpose, without a sense of meaning, having no stable sense of what I am and what I'm doing. It's a sad statement, but a lot of people decide to suicide at that point because they see no reason to live. It's a emptiness. It's a state where emptiness and meaninglessness prevail over all other sense of life. So we don't want that to happen. What we want to do is recognize that our mind is producing a sick, dark dream, but that it has another choice. There's another alternative available if we are willing to turn and open ourselves to that. In that state, there's an insight I had here. It says the world is causeless. We're talking the confused state here now. A world that the ego would have you believe in, the world, not the planet, but your view of what life on this world is, that world where it would have you believe no plans are possible and no design exists that could be found and understood, for it would have you believe they're all meaningless. And from this, we can understand what the Course means by the world is causeless. And this is really true. it means each of us has our own perception of life on this world. They're formulated as a result of your experiences and your relationships, the culture that you're born into, the language that you use, and the era that you live in. Everyone cobbles together a view of life based on fragments and pieces of information that we receive from our culture, our era, our language, the country we live in, the literatures we read. All that is stitched together to create your personal view of what life is. And we're not criticizing you for doing that. That's the way perception works, is it cobbles together little fragments of information and tries to form a big picture out of it. But that's the very nature of the problem, is a view of life that is cobbled together in a truly arbitrary manner with no plan, no principle, no purpose, some scattershot assembly of ideas that describe what life is. This is what the ego would have you believe reality consists of, is this scattershot assemblage of ideas. And this is why it's meaningless and it cannot be understood only, but it can be replaced by a different vision, by a new perception, one which the Holy Spirit offers us, one of which the miracle helps us to enter into.
The miracle establishes you dream a dream and that its content is not true. This is a crucial step in dealing with illusions. No one is afraid of them when he perceives he made them up. The fear was held in place because he did not see that he was author of the dream and not a figure in the dream. He gives himself the consequences that he dreams he gave his brother. And it is but this the dream has put together and has offered him, to show him that his wishes have been done. Thus does he fear his own attack, but sees it at another's hands. As victim, he is suffering from its effects, but not their cause. He authored not his own attack, and he is innocent of what he caused. The miracle does nothing but to show him that he has done nothing. What he fears is cause without the consequences that would make it cause. And so it never was.
There's a way of simplifying our understanding of this, and I teach it as a 3-level model. It's, I think, very simple and easy to understand, and then we can come back and look at what was just read in terms of that. On the lowest level is the dream where the ego prevails. We just talked about it. It's an assemblage of ideas that make no sense, and they're frightening. All of us have listened to that dream and thought it was real at some point, and maybe to some extent may still do so. So that's the lowest level, call it -1. The next level up, call it level 0, is where you empty your mind of those thoughts. It's not where you've done anything instead, it's just where you let them go, where you're no longer investing your faith and attention and identity in those ideas. It's a necessary phase to go through, but it will not heal you because after all you have now is nothing. Level 0. The next level up, think of it as +1, is where the Holy Spirit has replaced your meaningless thoughts with her meaningful perception, with new perception, new vision. Now your mind has something to chew on that makes happy. It's a happy dream. It's a learning journey. It's something that you can begin to recognize who you truly are. This prepares you for restoring the memory of God to your mind once again. So it's a crucial step that you begin by recognizing the contents of my mind and where I thought I was a victim and where I was afraid are but a dream. It's a crucial step in dealing with your illusions because it is essential you stop being afraid of the dream the ego would have you believe. As long, said another way, the ego would keep you trapped in its dream in a state of fear and looping round and round and round like an obsessive compulsive behavior where you can never escape because you're addicted to the cycle. The ego would have you stay locked into that. The first step in escaping is the recognition that the contents of that dream is not true. It's not real. And all this prepares you for the fundamental step. No one is afraid of those dreams when they perceive that your own mind has made them up. This is the release. Why am I afraid of something that I just conjured up for myself? That makes no sense. There's no reason to be afraid. And then from there, we can begin to arise up to the level that I talked about where the mind is no longer invested in fear. Susie?
I think this is one of the most crucial things. Well, it was for me to understand. So it says here that I'm at the effects. I'm suffering the effects
Yes.
of my dream.
Yes.
But I know now that my mind, there's no cause outside of my mind. So if I have, like, this is so amazing because you could, like, before ACIM, I could be experiencing the same thing over and over and over again and not understanding why, right? And suffering the effects. But now I can sit back and say, oh God, okay, what is in my mind? What am I making up
Yes.
that is making these effects? I can get these effects cleared right away if I just have Holy Spirit help me with the cause, which is, so it's really let me recognize the problem so it can be solved, because it's always that I am detached, disconnected from source. I mean, and when I got to truly understand that, it was like a game changer. So now, if something happens in this world that causes an ego, you know, I can sit back and say, okay, the effects weren't great, but it's all up here and it's not real. And if I can change it and not look at it from my ego's point of view, it's like I'm healed. But I had to get to be able to understand all of this.
Yeah.
And it's, like I said, it's amazing. It's a game changer. And I don't have to stay, you know, this for me is saving time. Yeah.
Thank you, Susie. Yeah, I want to add one more thing and builds upon what Susie was saying. It's the idea of fearing your own attack. In chapter 2, which I call the fear chapter, that's not the label of it, but it is very much focused on fear. It says that spirit cannot stop you from authoring your own attack upon yourself. Let me say it again. If your mind is invested in making up a fearful dream, spirit cannot interfere with your free will to do so. You have to yourself realize that you're doing this and I want to stop. Because only then is your will aligned with the idea of healing. As long as, and we all know what it's like to grind, Sandra would call it grind away with a fearful thought and remain trapped in there. Spirit cannot oppose your will to do so. It can only wait patiently until you choose again. And so there is a responsibility on our parts to recognize our part in the group, this crucial step in dealing with illusions, and then make a turn to choose to let go of that and have the Holy Spirit replace it. So we have a couple hands up here. Let's take a comment. Noel.
The hardest thing for me is to realize I'm innocent of what I've caused. We've talked about it before, but the self-forgiveness, even as Sandra was saying before, to forgive myself for imagining the illness is the hardest thing for me.
Yes. Yes. No,
And to realize I've done nothing. That's the leap.
yes. Yes, it is. Well, and because it's the ego's religion to constantly attack and tear you down. The ego opposes your true nature. So its conflict towards your true self is endless. It has endless energy for opposing your true nature and will never let you off the hook. And so Noel, the answer lies in the mind of the Holy Spirit, who regards you gently and with love and with innocence.
There again, like Susie says, just to ask for help.
Indeed. Indeed. Sandra, thank you for your patience.
Yeah, no problem. I was reading in the book, and it says that our greatest fear is the fear of God.
Yeah.
And Heather and I were talking about that this afternoon, and I think the reason we may fear God is because God is so complicated, so complex. I don't think our human mind can 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 wrap itself around the whole concept of what God is. And so if that's our greatest fear, I think that for me, I have to make my peace with that, which is why the solution is to trust and rely on something that we can't see. I mean, I can feel it around my heart area, but it's, and I can feel the presence of God. I don't know how or why that is, but it just is. But I have to really look at that deeply get in touch with the fact that I am afraid of God. And when you were explaining the three parts of your healing process, for me, I just had such a hard time letting go. And so I can't move from my egoic identity alignment until I can let go. And so for me, the Holy Spirit helps me to let go. When I turn it over to my Holy Spirit, which is not separate from me, it's my higher mind, I can then let go because I've done what I've been asked to do, which is turn it over to my Holy Spirit. Then the letting go process happens. But if it doesn't happen quick enough, because it never happens quick enough for me, it's because I got to go deeper.
Yeah.
The reason it's not happening quickly is because there's more for me to learn. There's more for me to heal. So I can't be upset with the process either of how long it's taking. I'm complete.
Thank you. Thank you for those words, Sandra. Sandra mentioned that we can't really understand God. Is so complex. And it's interesting because A Course in Miracles does not attempt to explain God or to talk all about the Creator. It mentions the Creator many times, but we aren't given a whole wide set of details or explanations. What the Course is intended to do is remove our, as Sandra said, our fear of God, so that now we can be open to receiving the truth. Because to put 1,000 truths about God build that on top of the fear of God does you no good, because that just splits you into one side intellectually, you know all these things about God, and the other side of you is deeply afraid of your relationship to God. So the Course is, again, what is called a bottoms-up spirituality. It fixes the foundation first, and then you can build upward from there. And as long as the foundation is the fear of the Creator, the more healing is needed. Okay. Well, I hope this is all helpful, but we need to kind of bring it to a final message.
The separation started with the dream. The father was deprived of his effects and powerless to keep them since he was no longer their creator. In the dream, the dreamer made himself, but what he made has turned against him, taking on the role of its creator as the dreamer had. And as he hated his creator, so the figures in the dream have hated him. His body is their slave, which they abuse because the motives he has given it have they adopted as their own, and hate it for the vengeance it would offer them. It is their vengeance on the body, which appears to prove the dreamer could not be the maker of the dream. Effect and cause are first split off and then reversed, so that effect becomes a cause, the cause effect.
Mm-hmm. So remember, in the first line, his effects, the sonship, are the Father's effects of creation. We are the effects of the Creator. This would be at the highest level, the spiritual level of our identity with the creation. We are the effects. But the separation is intended to tear that relationship apart, or at least, because it's powerless to tear it apart, but at least have you believe that it's been torn apart. Okay. And that, and instead, since in the illusion, the true Creator has been torn away, in the dream, we make a new Creator, which is the ego. But what he has made has turned against him. The ego is opposed to your true nature. The ego is taking on the role of its creator. And as the ego hates the true creator, So the figures of the dream have hated him. And then out of that confusion, let's form a view of our body. Well, this is what the Course of Miracles calls sickness. From this foundation of confusion between the truth of believing true creator's been torn away and that a substitute God, a semi-God called the ego has replaced it, out of that false belief system, we then formulate a sense of what our body is for. And the body becomes a slave. Abuse, vengeance, suffering, pain, etc., emerge out of that, because those are the terms that the ego thinks in. This is what a Course calls a sick body. A body who by itself it's neutral. The body has no opinion on these matters. But if the mind assigns the body an unholy purpose, it becomes sick. But it can be healed by letting go of that unholy purpose to which the ego has given it, and let it be replaced by the purpose that the Holy Spirit would give it. It gives it, and then the body becomes holy. This is the healing of the body. And by the way, that doesn't mean one has perfect health. You can serve God from a wheelchair just as well as any other state. And I don't mean to pick on wheelchairs, I'm just illustrating that we're talking about the ability of the body to serve the Holy Spirit's purpose, not to become Superman or Superwoman and be in so the purpose that is given the body is then exchanged. It's restored to its proper purpose.
This is a separation's final step, with which salvation, which proceeds to go the other way, begins. This final step is an effect of what has gone before, appearing as a cause. The miracle is the first step in giving back to cause the function of causation, not effect. For this confusion has produced the dream, and while it lasts, will awakening be feared. Nor will the call to awakening be heard, because it seems to be the call to fear. Like every lesson that the Holy Spirit requests you learn, the miracle is clear. It demonstrates what he would have you learn and shows you its effects are what you want. In his forgiving dreams are the effects of yours undone, and hated enemies perceived as friends with merciful intent. Their enmity is seen as causeless now, because they did not make it. And you can accept the role of maker of their hate, because you see that it has no effects. Now are you freed from this much of the dream? The world is neutral, and the bodies that still seem to move about as separate things need not be feared, and so they are not sick.
If the bodies are not feared, they are not sick, because the mind then has a appropriate and proper understanding of the purpose of the body. We need to repeat this because this is foundational, and this is what is said many times. In order to correct the errors of the separation, you have to go back to where it begins, where the fault entered in, the foundational idea that led to all the other effects of the dream. And because that's where the healing must occur if it's to be permanent. This is where the miracle is the first step in returning the truth to your mind. And it takes great courage to be willing to look that deep into the confused psyche of humanity and be able and willing to look and see the distortions and the insanity of the ego. So thank you, each of you, for having the courage to look at what people would rather not see. But we only do it not to make you uncomfortable, but so that you can see where the problem began and realize the big thing is, it says it right here. It was never true. It's causeless. It's just a big lie and error that we were ever separated from the Creator, and that we could have been thought to be guilty in the eyes of the Creator for a mistake. All of that was never true. It's the religion of the ego. It's never, and so the healed mind can laugh at how silly the message is that ego would have us believe in. And you can accept that it was but a dream, that the world is not evil, the people in it are not evil. They may be confused and misguided, but they're not evil. They're neutral, and the bodies that move about are not to be feared, for they too are but neutral until the mind assigns them a purpose. And so the bodies are not sick. They're ready to do whatever purpose you assign them to do. Atisha?
I wish there were, maybe there is, but hearing this, reading this, I wish there was a thing of like a Course in Miracle for children or ACIM for kids. Because when you say this is the religion of the ego, I would say it's also just religion. And I was pounded with this, pounded of the separation, that I have to crawl my way back to God. And it's like my adult life has been groping about to undo all of it. And just now coming to A Course in Miracles, I know that my desire to undo is right and justified.
Yes.
But that's how much I had been groping. Is this even something to, what is the truth? And is this even something to shed myself of? So I'm really grateful for these teachings. But yeah, I wish there were a way for children to be able to get this so that they can maybe avoid so much indoctrination.
And yeah, I'm inclined to spend a few minutes on that, just some thoughts of going off the record here, but I trust that people will have, talented people will have ways of developing a message that children can understand that will ground them in the truth. I trust in that. As a matter of fact, I have experience in teaching at Unity Church. I'm not trying to endorse any one denomination or sect, but when I taught school children in Unity Church, all the principles that we taught there were consistent with the message here. It wasn't psychologically deep and profound. It didn't go but they were all positive messages of the love of God and the innocence of people. I'm sure those things will emerge. They may not be widely popular just yet, but as more and more people heal and awaken, as more authors come out, they're already people that are attempting to write books for children on A Course in Miracles. I can't endorse any of them. I haven't read them, but I trust all that is to come. All right. All right. So this is, but for now, Course in Miracles for Adults is what we have.
The miracle returns the cause of fear to you who made it. But it also shows that having no effects, it is not cause, because the function of causation is to have effects. And where effects are gone, there is no cause. Thus is the body healed by miracles, because they show the mind made sickness and employed the body to be victim or effect of what it made. Yet half the lesson will not teach the whole. The miracle is useless if you learn but that the body can be healed, for this is not the lesson it was sent to teach. The lesson is the mind was sick that thought the body could be sick. Projecting out its guilt caused nothing and had no effects.
Many people want to turn to A Course in Miracles to heal their physical health. As you know, I've known students that came in with cancer, hoping that this was a cure for cancer. And they weren't interested in the other dimensions of the Course, but they were looking for healing of their physical body. Of all the statements in the Course in Miracles about healing in the body, what was just read might, I think, says it clear enough. What have we been talking about? We're talking about the ego being motivating a dream and then assigning a role to the body that is to be feared, and suffering and attack and vengeance and all that, and really confusion about the vulnerability of the body to fear. And we all know that when you believe in the dream, you do feel vulnerable to fear. We know that to be true. And yet, when we see that it was all a dream, the effects of that are as nothing, for it was never a true cause. It was a lie that initiated all that, and therefore is unworthy of your believing in it. And so we withdraw our power from it. And that's how the body is healed, because it no longer has this sentence that the ego had given it. It's healed by miracles because it's shown that the body has a different purpose. Yet that's only half the lesson. I'm going to read this again because it needs to be heard and understood. That's only half the lesson. The miracle is useless if you learn but that the body can be healed. For this is not the lesson it was sent to teach. What is the lesson? The lesson is that the mind was sick, that in believing that the body could be assigned a sick purpose. The mind was mistaken in believing that the body could be assigned a purpose that is given by the ego, and which would then project out its guilt and result in illusions, begetting illusions, begetting illusions, which are never true, are never lasting. Therefore, they have no enduring effects. And so those who have ears to hear, let them hear.
This world is full of miracles. They stand in shining silence next to every dream of pain and suffering, of sin and guilt. They are the dream's alternative, the choice to be the dreamer, rather than deny the active role in making up the dream. They are the glad effects of taking back the consequence of sickness to its cause. The body is released because the mind acknowledges, this is not done to me, but I am doing this. And thus the mind is free to make another choice instead. Beginning here, salvation will proceed to change the course of every step in the descent to separation, until all the steps have been retraced, the ladder gone, and all the dreaming of the world undone.
Mm-hmm. So I find this to be helpful to understand the body is released because the mind acknowledges that the mind was dreaming. What is the body released from? It's released from the sentence or from the purpose that the ego assigned to it, which is to be used for attack and vengeance and to suffer and die. The mind is released from the curse of the ego. And thus, the mind is free to make another choice instead, which is to see its own purpose, see the mind as having a purpose of healing, and employ the body for that purpose. And so that brings us back to where we began. At last, the mind acknowledges this is not done to me, but I'm doing this to myself. Here are the effects of tracing back sickness to its cause, where it all started. And thus, the mind is free to make another choice instead. And from here, beginning here, salvation will change the course of every step. In the descent, the separation was a descent from the light into the nightmare. The salvation will change the course of every step in the descent to separation until all the steps have been retraced, the ladder gone, and they're dreaming of the world undone. And so it's ascending back up the ladder. Later on, we'll find this is the ladder of prayer. It's a supplement of the Course of Miracles that will begin towards the end of this year. The retracing of all the steps until we reach the top, and the ladder is needed no more. Once you reach the top, the ladder is gone, and then all the dreaming of the world is gone with it. And so that's the plan for atonement, is to undo that confusion. It's a widespread confusion. Atisha, I trust that someday we'll make it easy. This will be easier for adults to understand, and then they'll find ways to make it easier for the children to understand. For now, we've only just begun. We're still in the first 50 years. Well, no, actually, publication was 1976. So in 2026 will be 50 years since the course was published. So we're still in the first 50 years. It's a big reversal of many of the ancient beliefs that have been around in this world and have discolored our perception of life itself. And as you said, Atisha, I agree. It's these discolored beliefs have embedded themselves in religions themselves. And those individuals that perpetuated those beliefs, they too were confused. It's not that they are necessarily and inherently bad people. They just drank the Kool-Aid of the ego and believed it to be real, became afraid themselves, and then passed on those teachings. And so all the more reason for us to recognize that all this is unnecessary. It's but a false foundation of beliefs that can be changed by the power of our mind. And so we will pick that up again in the future of using the power of our mind to become free and to choose again. Thank you, Atisha, for reading. Thank you all for your comments and your courage, your willingness to challenge assumptions that have been embedded into our religions and our philosophies and our worldviews for thousands of years. I honor the courage and the divinity within you. Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you, Atisha.
Yeah, thank
Namaste.
you, Atisha.
Stay.
Thanks,
Thank
Atisha.
you,
That was
John.
great.
Thank you, Atisha. Thank you, everyone.
Namaste. Thanks, Atisha.
Good
Good
night.
job.
Thanks, everyone.
You did a good job, Atisha. Yes, you did.
Yeah.
You did a good job. Also.